This is the video tutorial for the Happy Days Sally Shopper with zipper pouch. You'll need 2 contrasting fabrics for the bag, contrasting fabric for the zipper pouch, a 12-inch zip and some herringbone webbing. And this is how we make it. The Sally Shopper is made using a French seam method. It's a little different to our normal way. Place your fabrics pretty sides down. If you are using directional fabric, ensure that this is the top of your bag. Then place your fabrics wrong sides together. Line up all the sides and edges, and then add a few clips all along this with wrong sides together. So I'm looking at the pretty side. I've added my clips, and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine and use a scant 1/4 inch, so not quite a 1/4 inch, sew all along this edge and stop. I've sewn all the way across using a scant 1/4 inch, and now I'm going to flip this bottom piece over and ensure that the seam is level, and then add some clips. I folded it on the seam and added my clips, and I'm now going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance this time and sew all the way across. The next part of the sewing, what we're going to be doing is sewing over the seam that we made before. So when you're under your sewing machine, you can feel it. Now make sure that this next seam covers that fabric. I've sewn all the way down, and that's our beautiful French seam all formed. Your bag now should be looking like this, so the seam is all enclosed. The next sewing is to form the hem at the top. To do this, we fold the fabric over 1 centimetre and then a further 1 centimetre and press. I've folded over the top by 1 centimetre and pressed, and I'm going to now turn it over by another centimetre. You can use your ruler for this, and once again press. I folded the top of the bag 1 centimetre, then a further 1 centimetre and pressed, and as you can see I've added some clips, and I'm now going to take it over to the sewing machine and sew along the bottom folded edge all along. I'm going to increase my stitch length to a 4, and I'm going to sew all along there to form the top hem. Take your time with this. And there's your first hem. Now we're going to add the handles. First, you need to measure 10 centimetres from this side edge, and using a heat erasable pen, make a mark. Do another one about halfway, make a mark. At the bottom, measure again 10 centimetres and make a mark. Finally, using your marks, get another long ruler and draw a line all the way down, remembering to use a heat erasable pen. Now, using the other side, once again measure 10 centimetres in, and as I did this side, make a mark midway and at the bottom. Then join your line up as I did this side. Next, take your herringbone tape and place it along the line so the outside line is on the line you've just drawn, and when you're happy with the position, add a few pins. I've added some pins and I've positioned my pins in the centre. So if you do exactly the same as me, this is because our next step is to sew quite close to the edge of the tape all the way down this side and again along this side. Now I'm going to put my zipper foot on. If you haven't got a zipper foot, don't worry, just sew really close to the edge. I've put my zipper foot on and I'm going to use the edge of my zipper foot as a guide and keep it along the edge of my herringbone tape. When I get to the top, I'm going to swizzle around . And as I did before, using the edge of my foot, carry on down the other side. I'm using contrasting cotton, but you could use cream or white cotton if you wish. It just shows up a bit better on the camera. See, that needle is a little bit too close for my liking, so I'll take the pin out. There we go, that's our one strap sewn into place. Now to do the other side, and once again using the line we drew, and make sure that your herringbone tape isn't twisted. Place your tape on your line, and once again add a few pins down the middle. I've added my pins to the other side, and as I did on here, I'm going to take it over the sewing machine and I'm going to sew all the way around and back down. And that's your second handle in place. I've sewn both handles into place, so that's the front of my bag all finished, and I'm going to repeat the whole process for the back of my bag. Before you start sewing your handles in place, make sure that this seam is lying flat. Place your front and your back sections wrong sides together, so wrong side to wrong side, so you're looking at the pretty side. Line up all the sides and these seams here and add some clips. I've placed the two sides wrong sides together. I've lined up all the sides and edges, and I've paid special attention to these seams here so they match up. And now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, sew all the way along and stop, along the bottom and stop, and then back up to the top and stop. I've sewn all the way around, joining the two sides together. I'm now going to turn it the other way out. I've also snipped each of the corners. I've turned it the other way out so right sides are together, and now I'm going to use 1/2 an inch seam allowance so it covers up this seam here. You can feel with your fingers, and I'm going to sew all the way down to the bottom, stop, across the bottom and stop, and then back up and stop. Turned it the right way out, I pressed it, and that's your Sally shopper all finished. We're now making the pouch to put your Sally shopper in. Take one piece of fabric that you've cut out for the pouch and fold it right sides together and press. I've made a nice sharp crease. I'm going to open it up slightly, take my zip, and with the tab facing upwards on the left hand side of your bag, place the edge of the zip on the crease you've just made, then fold over again and add a few clips. I've added some clips and I'm going to take it over the sewing machine. I'm going to put my zipper foot on and I'm going to sew all along, joining the fabric to the zip. I've placed my zipper foot on my machine and I've lowered my foot, and I've ensured that the edge of my zipper foot and the edge of the fabric line up, and I'm going to sew all the way down. I've sewn all the way across, and now I'm going to flip it over. Now line up all the edges and carefully iron away from your zip. Be careful you don't get your iron on your nylon teeth. I've pressed a nice sharp crease. I'm going to put this to one side while we work on the other piece of fabric. Take your other piece of fabric and fold in half, and once again line up your sides and edges and a nice sharp press crease there. I've taken it over to the iron and I've given it a nice sharp crease. Now open out and take your other piece that you made first that's got the zip on and carefully place it with this edge of the zip on the fold that you've just made. Take your time with this and fold over. Make sure everything lines up and then add some clips. I've added some clips, and as I did before, I'm going to take it over the sewing machine with my zipper foot on and sew all the way along this side. I've sewn all the way across. Now I've got to flip this one over. Line everything up. And then take it over your iron and once again nice press across the top. Again, beware of your nylon zip. The next bit of sewing is to carefully top stitch across the top. This is to give a nice professional look. I always increase stitch length to about a 4. All top stitched. I've top stitched along both sides and I've also opened my zip about halfway. Next, fold over and line up your bottom edge and your side edge and add some clips. I've added my clips and I'm now going to take it over the sewing machine and use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to sew all the way around, down this side, across the bottom and then back up to the top and stop. Sewn all the way around and I've also cut off the excess zip each end. For a nicer finish, I'm going to zigzag all the way around. I've zigzagged around the edge. I'm now going to turn it the right way out through the zip and I'm going to push out the corners and press. That's our Sally Shopper zipper pouch all finished.